Hello, my name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and we are trying out a one-shot of Mythomorphosis, which is a game written by, let me get the author's name here. I should have grabbed that, like scroll to the first page here, by Gordie Murphy. And this is the second edition of the game. It is a story game in the tradition of Microscope and other kind of world building games. I'm going to be going through our cats and how it's set up and safety and all of those things to talk about what this game is about and how we're going to be playing that. So in this game, it's 1 to 4 players. We're going to be exploring the relationship between a society's history, a dominant cultural story, and we're going to be creating and kind of changing that myth over time. This is being done through collaboration, tweaking, and roundabout play. We're going to kind of develop a society together, and then it's going to change, and the stories that impact it are going to change over time. We are going to be using a layered set of safety tools, and I'll come back to those in a moment because I want to go through the cats, but I do want to say, uh, important to keep in mind that this game involves creating and changing societies and myths. And so we want to be particularly culturally sensitive. It's good to be inspired by stories around the world. We want to treat any cultures that we're referencing, with honor and respect. We want to avoid, I think, there are some loaded terms that get thrown around in myths like tribes and primitives and things like that, savages, those things. Those are all terms we want to avoid using, or at least we want to unpack them if they're involved in what we're talking about. So our CATS document for this game. First off, the concept. Mythomorphosis is a game about creating a myth from scratch before collaborating to discover how it changes over time alongside a society's values and history. The aim for this is to foster an appreciation for how our own myths have changed and how those stories are shaped. For tone, this game is always about culturally important stories, but each session's tone is largely up to us. Many important folk tales and myths are not particularly serious. We'll kind of work out a tone that we want and we'll work to stick to it. In terms of subject matter, we're telling a cornerstone myth of a civilization or society. This is a myth that's defined them over time, whether that's a short span of time or whether it's generations. It's definitely possible to tell a more trivial story, but often there needs to be some narrative weight behind what we are doing here. Now, to help facilitate that, we are, as I said, using a layered set of safety tools. At the top level, on our safety tab, we have our lines, fails, and ask first. Lines being anything that is material, scenes, elements we don't want present in the game. Veils being anything that, if they appear as a topic, as a piece, as a part of the story, they are alluded to, they are discussed in passing, they are mentioned but not dwelled on. And then ask first are any topics that, if we wanted to bring them into the story, we want to poll the table, we want to check with the group before we bring those into play. So as I'm going through this, again, living document, so feel free to add to those lines, veils, and ask first, especially if there's something that is not on the list that needs to be added to it. So that's a baseline. Second, of course, we are using the X card for responsive thing to mark out content that we find objectionable, that we find problematic, that we find wildly off tone. At any point, we can say X card to mark that out. We might ask like how far back we need to go, but when you do X card something, for whatever reason, you don't have to defend your choice. You can, if you wish, explain it, but you're not required to. X card is also a good place if we feel like we're starting to drift into a line or a veil, or we just basically need to recalibrate where we are in terms of play. One of the things is that this game is a little bit different than Microscope. Microscope we played, some of us played before, isolates us during that creation phase. That is not the case here. We can kibitz and chat and talk and pull the table about elements that we want to bring in there. So this is a little bit different on that. I want to stress that. Of course, we are using the open door policy, which means that if you need to step away for whatever reason, personal, physical, emotional, you can do that. It'd be great if you could tell us that I'm going to be back at this time or I'm not going to be back, but you're not absolutely required to do that. You just remember that you can leave. You should never feel trapped in a game. I have. It is not fun. So just keep that in mind. So those are the big ones that are on the table here for what we're going to be exploring. I am going to go over now to the planning document. Uh, just to tell you kind of how we're going to be doing this. There is going to be a tab that has a story that we're going to break into beats for that story. And after we've kind of established what society we are, and those would be like if it were on the table, we'd have a set of index cards for those beats going, left to right, 1 to 5. Then what we're going to be doing is making changes to those beats within a generation and kind of moving that forward. We'll be kind of adding to it, changing it, and so on. And as we do a new generation, we'll copy over the previous set of the story and modify it. So we'll have multiple tabs of that as we go along. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be figuring out kind of what our society concept is, what genre, what kind of story we want to be telling, what it is. We don't have to necessarily know exactly what the story is, but our first place is to kind of know genre and location. And that may give us some ideas about what kind of story we have. I've got some concept ideas in there. Some of them kind of point towards the story a little more than others do. But we're going to start kind of with that. So, I think there are a number of ways we could go sort of rural, here's my Hoosier accent, rural folk stories, or we could go sci-fi, we could go classic fantasy, we could go, like an urban legend, we could do anything like that, any kind of thought, like what genres appeal to folks or don't appeal to folks. I'll put that out there. Adish, if you were to think of a couple of genres that you'd be interested in exploring a story from, what would be a couple of those?
Um, yeah. I always like fairy tales.
Okay.
Like could be based on a real event or not, but um, that sort of thing. Something that gets turned in specifically gets turned into a story that makes
Okay.
uh,
So either a sort of historical or a fantastical world that has these, you think?
think I'm good either way, but I'm leaning towards like the real world,
Okay.
so to speak. But that's absolutely not a hard
Okay.
limit for me.
So real world, fantasy, anything else?
No, I haven't had time to think
Okay,
properly. So,
absolutely. No, no, I'm dropping people in the deep
yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah, and that's fine.
Uh, Ho
I'm usually easy. I will
yeah.
go along with those things.
Jose, any thoughts about genres or like the kind of place that we want to be exploring out of the kinds of society that we might want to be looking at?
There's something about Sabine's background that's hard to ignore because
I can
the
share.
tone is no. It's evocative, but the tone of it. For some reason, I'm thinking that the world is somehow uh, like either in a pioneer mode or underpopulated or rural or something in that. I guess that's more tonal than anything else, but
Yeah.
there are some things in there, yeah.
So something that's a pioneer, maybe closer to the real world. We don't know much about yet about that the kind of the setting, but in that genre, in that place. Sabine, thoughts about that?
I was lost in an inevitable. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Can you give me the spin real quick?
So right now we're trying to
Wait.
figure out about like genre or place we're going to be starting, and
Mhm.
this is our
Yeah.
society
Okay.
concept.
Yeah.
And we mentioned something that maybe leans a little bit more real world, or
Yeah.
or low fantasy, pioneer
Okay.
style, something like that. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure about pioneer style actually, because that is kind of like okay, but is that country really empty or what? Or what happened to the people who lived there before? I mean, I maybe we can combine this with what happened to the gods. I know this is not exactly fairy tale. Sorry, Anders. Um, but if we are like, okay, this is a wild country and there were gods before and now they're gone and we're here and what happened here?
Andish, Jose, what do you think of that? So our society is maybe a settlement, a place
Mhm.
that is in something has happened. It's kind of out. The land is empty around it, and we're the story about like how that came to be, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so let's say so.
Yeah, and we can avoid the colonialism aspect of it by having the land be empty, and we don't know what happened to if there were people there before or they're not there anymore. And here we're entering this land empty of humans, anyways.
And we know, but we know that there was an event. We know that this thing, that is our story about this. So, some kind of settlement that has been established in this place that has been emptied. I think that there's definitely, signs of that around. We don't know what they mean. We don't know exactly what that is, but I think if we do this, I want to establish, if we can, that like there is like low magic, or there is people have access to something supernatural, so we do know that the supernatural exists in a concrete way, even if it's just there's a hedge wizard in town. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. This thing. Uh, it's common. Uh, what what kind of place do we want this to be? Do we want this to be a thriving frontier town on the edge of the empty? Do we want it to be a relatively new settlement in this space? Do we want it built on the ruins of something else? Do we want it to be a crossroads? I'll start with you on this one, Jose.
I like the idea of built on the ruin of something else because I like the idea that we don't know who these antecedents. I don't know what to call them. We're not related to them, but
Right.
directly. But the folk who were here before, who are not here anymore, and we don't know why. They it seems like it would be cool to be kind of immersed in something that represents them, and is a clear sign that they were here. So
Okay.
it's not like the world's empty. No.
Yeah, and we can, that can be spots or manifestations that we bring into our particular story,
Yeah.
or just, as time comes, we integrate into that. Sabine, like how big do you think our thing should be? Should it be a new town that's thriving? It should be more sketchy? What do you imagine for that?
I think people don't go to strange places and ruins if they have if there's not a good reason to go there and settle. So I think these people might be fugitives at least
Okay.
from other people, from environmental dangers, things like that. Or if there was something that was keeping people away and now the land has opened up, you still don't go there if you're feeling cozy at home, right?
Yeah, so that's two ways to look at it. Do you think it is that that this place has just opened up, something has occurred to just open it up, or do you think it is more that our populace are fleeing something? What do you think, Sabine?
I like fleeing better,
Okay,
actually.
so we'll put refugees. Our settlement is made up of people that have come from elsewhere. They've come to this place, and Ondish, sizable settlement, small settlement, scattered groups. What do you think?
Um, I kind of got the idea that this is like the last sizable settlement before like the frontier. So there are people who have gone beyond and who have settled in some places out there. But these ruins that we live in, that's like the last maybe secure place or maybe just suitable for a larger settlement. So it's not a big city, but it is a town and not just a village.
Okay, I like it. So, world is an event has occurred. So we're kind of a pioneer vibe. You know that there's low magic amongst our people. The place that we're in, built on ruins, we can see that there's evidence of the past. Our people are refugees from something, maybe multiple groups or a single group. And this is kind of the edge. Once you go past here, you're into the Badlands, into the Wildlands, into more of the evidence of what, like the unusual, what happened before. Um, so that is our society. What is a good name? Any thoughts on a name for this? This is one of those cases where it's so open.
I mean, it could be like last ruin, just because we're living in a ruin and it's last place out. But
Maybe Firstruin, because I mean we're the first to be here after the people were lived in the ruins.
yeah, that's true. True.
So let's just call it Firstruin.
Yeah.
That's the name of our settlement. That's the name of the place that we're telling the story about. So the aesthetic definitely has a kind of a low fantasy pioneer vibe to it. And we've got a big question here. Now, uh, what we're going to do is we're going to add some character archetypes. We might not use these, but they're a way to get a vibe on the table of people that might be here, uh, uh, you know, and might be referencing things in the past or whatever, and then we'll do some locations. So I think I want to I'll start with the character archetype. I think obviously we put a sheriff on as a character archetype in this. Andish, what's another kind of character we might see in this place? Not necessarily, it might not go into the story, but it tells us something about the place that we're exploring.
A mayor.
So we have a classic elected official leader, got the sash and such. Uh, Jose?
I want to say there's like a seer of some sort,
Okay.
someone who guided them to this ruin.
Seer who guided them here. Sabine, what's another archetype we might have?
Um, I think we might have a rule breaker, someone who is like this, like having that as a societal role. You're the rule breaker. You get to break the rules just to see if that breaks things, because if it breaks things, the rules weren't all that important, right? But if it does, well, okay, you've done it, please don't do it again, or maybe you do, and then we'll dunk you in the water, or throw some pies at you or something.
Okay.
But yeah, so but this is an important rule, because somebody who challenges the rules, that helps a society grow, I think.
Okay. I will add a slightly off hedge mage.
Yeah.
Maybe they're the town drunk. Maybe they're just a little weird. whatever, but we've got that. Ondish?
We gotta have like, oh, I'll take the obvious one, a bartender.
Okay,
Uh,
classic. Jose?
Um, someone. So I'm just thinking about, I don't know what the archetype would be, but someone who doesn't really want to be there. I mean, you had put reluctant colonist in there. I mean, maybe we could just call it that, but someone
Yeah,
who's really resentful about actually being on this, being a part of this.
they got dragged out here. They were forced out here. They don't want to be here. Okay,
Mhm.
I like that. And to me, what's one more person that we might have in this town?
Teacher.
Teacher. Okay. Next, we're going to do the same sort of thing, but we're going to come up with some locations. And this may give us a better sense of the geography of the area around here, may lead us to something like a more sense of what we might associate with. Uh, Ondish, what's a location we might see around here?
the high tower that we keep watch from.
Mhm.
Jose?
I think the ruin with the tower is perched on the edge of an enormous gorge
Mhm.
with maybe a river flowing at the bottom of the gorge.
Okay. Sabine?
I think there's this portal, or maybe it is not a portal. Maybe it's just an arch. It's unclear. The weird hedge wizard said it was called it a portal, and the name stuck around. And nobody has ever gone through it, came out somewhere else or something. But still, you never know, right?
Right.
So it's not functional necessarily. You can just walk through it, but
It's just
some
an
sense,
it's just a stone arc set somewhere, like freestanding stone arc,
right?
and it is in a place where you uh, think that it has some significance, like on a pedestal or something.
But no one knows how to activate it, right?
No, no, or if it's even supposed to be activated, or if it's just a ritualistic thing or something.
I think that there are uh, caves and caverns in the walls of the gorge.
Ooh.
We're up above, but we got that river down below, and someone has constructed those. We know that. Adish, what's another detail about our place?
Yeah, I was thinking like I think the caves and such kind of cover that. I was thinking like, but maybe this is a different thing, like storage rooms and dungeons, but like big rooms underneath, and there's like, oh, here's a spiral staircase that goes down somewhere, and it's not quite, we're not quite certain how deep this goes. Maybe it merges with the caves as well.
So underground chambers and weird ways down to them.
Yeah.
Okay. Jose?
So these should be locations.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So places we could actually go to or something like that. Right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah. This is giving us more of a sense of what is around the town. We may work some of these into the myth that we come up with. It may evolve as we talk about what's happening in the town over generations.
Yeah. I think the river that runs through the gorge is sourced in a mountain range that's clearly visible. Um, uh, whatever to the west of the town. Yeah.
Mountain range in distance to the west. River source. Sabine?
I think there's a saloon. because there has to be a saloon,
Okay.
right? And I think it was put into something that might have been a temple, but it has been repurposed. Mostly people who were drunk have said maybe weird things or seen weird things.
Okay. And I'm going to say, uh, I'm going to say that there is a woods somewhere outside of town, and it's a little freakish because everything grows in straight lines. There are weird patterns and things, but if you try and other things don't grow except in like this weird, orderly thing, regardless of what people do. So that gives us some themes here. Now, uh, the question uh, is our story going to be the story that we tell of what happened to the gods? Is that what we want to be our story, or what happened to this place? What the story is we tell about that? What or something else? What do you think? What's more appealing? This is the story that we tell that informs us about our place in this world.
Maybe it's a story about how the first refugees came here and settled and interacted with all these
Okay.
weird things that were going on in this place.
So, but that means that that story. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but that feels like then that story has to be like a sizable time into the past, or am I
Yeah.
misunderstanding how the game
Yeah,
works?
I guess so.
Yeah, cool.
So our people have been here for a while, and this is the story of how the very first people, maybe so far we don't there's no direct contact with them, but they came and found this place.
Mhm.
Jose, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like it. So like the founders. So we are not the first people here. There are founders. Um, uh, and well, we can figure out about them later. But I was about to think about something about them. But I like that. We could work with.
Okay.
I could work with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that story in just a moment. I do want to give us a chance. We are kind of using in the to talk about this in the rules. I'm using more of a structured microscope approach to the palette, which is the idea of things that, given what we've talked about, uh, like if there's something that we might expect to see that we don't want to see here, we put it on the no side. If there's something we've talked about that we might not expect to see, but we do want to have present, we can put that on the yes side. Um, and so we do have low magic. We do have some things like that. I'm trying to think of, and I'll have us go around on this. Um, I guess I do want that. uh, that there are fair folk in this world. Maybe not here, maybe they are here, I don't know, but that there are some equivalent. I want to pull back to what Anders had mentioned, the fairies, and that's sort of still stuck in my head that there are the fair folk in some version in our world. Sabine, anything you want to add or ban for this palette?
Ah, I think, hmm, I think I would like the idea of having some. hmm, 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 hmm. I need to phrase this.
Sure.
Oh, yes, I have it. Dead God's Dreams.
Okay.
That might spill over into something that's become important in some
I
issue.
like that. We've got people, there are dreams of the dead gods. Uh, Ondish?
Yeah. Um, my head is already going. My brain is spinning forward. I think we have. I think there's a strong theater culture, like people will put on plays in various ways.
So, as one, so theater culture isn't as has been historically that where it was actors. It's sort of the opposite. Okay. Jose?
I'm thinking, I don't know how to say this, that the people here are not all from one place,
Okay.
that they've all come from different places and
Mm.
converged here. So there's a diversity of people here. They're not, it's not a monoculture.
Okay. Okay. Let me think if there's anything else I want to add or ban. No, I don't think so. I don't think off the top of my head. I was about to say dragons, but we'll just leave that alone. Uh, Andres, anything else you want to add or ban here?
Don't think so.
Okay.
Nothing that springs to mind.
All right. Uh, and then, Jose, anything else you want to add or ban?
Mm, 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 mm. This might already be in the environment we've created, but whatever it was that decimated this earlier culture, that threat still exists somewhere
Ooh,
in this land. Maybe the threat still exists. As simple as that.
okay. Yeah. Sabine, anything else you want to add or ban?
I would like to ban demons.
Okay.
I I don't think we need demons.
Absolutely. I'm going to misspell demons, of course. I'm typing.
But go ahead and misspell
Yeah.
demons. They're still banned.
Yeah. Anything else anybody wants to add or ban? So we're going to kind of come up with the story. Uh, they have some ideas for if we want to have some starting questions to go from. Just to give you an example of what the beats look like in this, they have an example drawn from Arthurian legend, and they break down essentially the legend of Arthur in this way: that Arthur gets adopted by an English lord as a young boy, sort of that adoption being brought in. Uh, Two, he meets Merlin the wizard, that important meeting. Uh, Three, he gets taught about the world by being turned into different animals with very much going on. The is it E.B. White's or T.H. White's Once Future. Uh, Four, he pulls the sword out of the stone at a tournament, fulfilling the prophecy, and then five becomes the king. That's kind of how they break down the beats. Now, I think we've kind of got the who or what does the myth focus around. Do we want to narrow that down further? We've got the first settlers. I'm going to say settlers again, my Hoosier accent. Uh, uh, do we want, is there a particular person who represents that? Is there a founder figure we want for our myth? Or are we just want who, you know, the first arrivals? Thoughts on that?
I like the first arrivals better than having this mythic founding father figure. I am mistrustful of mystic founding father
Okay.
figures.
So the first arrivals, uh, and they came to this place, and why did they come here? Are they also refugees? Or another reason for why they came here?
I want to say they were called somehow through dreams, compelled to come here. So they weren't fleeing something like we are. They came for a different reason.
Okay. Well, and the result is the founding of this place.
And by this place, do we mean Firstruin?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is there any pushback against this? Is there any force that opposes it?
I think maybe I'm trying to think if because we have Fey life, right? Fairfolk. I don't remember what we called
I just called them the fair folk.
Fairfolk. I think maybe not like actively resisting, but issuing a warning or something. A cryptic warning, of course,
Oh, yeah.
because that's how they
Crypt,
roll. But
yeah. Cryptic oracular warning. So let me suggest, it seems to me that our first story beat is uh, the founders, the first arrivals receive the dreams of the dead gods. Does that seem like a good place that we start? Okay. So I'm going to pop over to Myth Gen 1, put that there in that first beat. And that is so. Do we want to talk about what the second beat is, or do we want to talk about like what the end beat is for this story? Jose?
I think so I'm trying to think about the end beat. I guess the end beat would the end beat be the founding of Firstruin as a settlement, or would it be something different?
I don't know. Is it doing something that allows them to found the place, or is it the founding itself?
feels like it feels like the founding should happen. Like if the first thing is them getting called here, I feel like if the story is going to concern this place, then the founding can't be at the end. It has to be in the middle
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay.
That,
And
that's
I
just
think
yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking like they arrived, some threat happened, at the end they settle in. They have arrived, and there might have been some troubles on the way, but I think at the what other end point to people arrive at a strange place to people decide that this is actually the place they want to stay.
Okay. So maybe the second
I
beat is
I don't mean to take this away from Anders. So
oh,
though
No, no, no. I was just trying to think
no,
about what would the story be like if the first thing is them getting called and the last thing is the location being founded, then the story would be about them
Finding the
traveling here, I
location.
guess.
Yeah.
so how about they our second beat is, and we'll figure out this out in a second, is something about the travel and the turmoil of that.
mhm,
And they arrive here in
mhm.
that beat. And then we know the last beat is either they choose to settle here or they overcome something to settle here.
Mhm.
So what do
Yeah.
we think? Like, so the founders overcome trials, not trails, trials on their journey. And that's one of the things where we can leave that open because we may, over the course of our myth saying, start telling more things about what that journey was.
Mhm.
So let me. Uh, oh boy, I'm going to type everything terribly wrong. Uh,
I'll go
uh,
through and fix your spelling.
please. Uh, and arrive. May I suggest, because this is something that Andres put in the thing, maybe the third one is uh, the fair folk issue a cryptic warning.
Mhm.
Uh, so they issue a cryptic warning. That's in the story. And got last two beats. If the last beat is that they decide to settle here, is there something that uh, did they split and some went on and some decided to settle here, or was there a thing that they overcame and that permitted them to settle here? What do we think for that end beat?
I'm wondering whether there was a split. I like the idea of a split that some of them, the founders, wanted to settle in Firstruin, and others still felt called to go further into the whatever, let's call it the wilderness or
Okay.
the interior, let's call it. Yeah. And
Founders.
maybe there's two groups of them now. Yeah.
Was there some kind of obstacle though in our fourth beat that maybe they had to overcome and
Yeah.
because I feel they arrive and then they argue a bit and then
Yeah. So
everything's hunky dory. It's a little
what is the fourth, the like that beat? What is the challenge they overcome? Was there a creature that they had to overcome? Was there a magic they had to undo? Was
I mean,
there a gone?
maybe not all of the gods were so very happy. Some told them, others thought, well, eh, what are those? Or maybe they just made, somebody said trials. So maybe there were trials that they had to absolve to be worthy of living in this ruined place, basically.
How about uh, they had to appease a surviving god through a set of
Mhm.
trials?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right. Uh, so we're going to come up with some manifestations of the myth. We know this story, the story about the travel, about them doing these trials, about the dreams of their gods. Given that story and its importance to our people, we're going to ask ourselves what are some manifestations. And so we're going to ask ourselves, what's a physical manifestation of the story we see in our present world? What is a social manifestation? For example, how do people represent the events of the myth to each other in the society? And uh, the emotional, how do people feel about the events of the myth in society? Uh, so, Sabine, which of those would you like
Mhm.
to tell us about?
I think this is about the warning the fair folk gave. And I think this warning is referenced in several folk songs and art things. And we said theater culture, right? It is a kind of like the Greek chorus. We have the fairy folk issuing warnings in the theater productions, right? Because that's what they do, issue ominous warnings.
Okay. So the warning referenced in plays and folk
Mhm.
songs.
Yeah.
Uh, Jose, do you want to tell us about the emotional or the a physical manifestation of this story?
So an emotional one, how did they feel about it? Okay. So, and I would take a beat and then and elaborate on the beat, right?
Yeah, well, basically, this is a more general thing. We're going to be talking to ourselves like what do we know about, you know, what this tells people how they feel about it.
I think, okay, what I want to say is that the ones that kept walking, um, um, the ones who live here in Firstruin have a sense of that they've lost something when the others continued walking, and they long for the return of those people, even though they've never met them themselves.
Okay. There's a little bit of a melancholy that comes at the end of that story there. Okay. And then Adish, what might be a physical manifestation of this story that we're going to
Um,
see here?
think there are like murals and wall carvings and that sort of thing that illustrate this because we're living in this big stone ruin. There are big walls. People have put up these murals, and I think these are not, at least not all of them are permanent. It's like people make them and then they make a new one and change it. And
Mm.
Const Constantly updated. All right. So that gives us some manifestations. We're going to play around with those in a bit. Uh, Here is the question then that we're going to ask ourselves. What has happened recently? What defines the generation that we're in? Like, what has occurred? Like, have people heard a new dream? Has there been a drought? Has there been pressure from the old world? What defines the kind of the generation of people that we're going to be exploring right at the start? Any
Mm.
ideas?
And is that in relationship to the myth?
Yeah. So, but this basically what this is going to do is this is going to give us something that's happening to the present people that we're going to talk about,
And we'll
And
try
that
to.
may tell us how this myth gets
Oh, I see.
changed or
Got it.
adapted in response.
So some vicissitude happening right now to this generation that might get integrated later on into the myth. I get it.
Mhm.
Okay.
If we want to tie in something like concrete, how about this? How about they have seen new fair folk in the area? That's
Yeah.
unusual. There are new fair folk. They're different from the old fair folk. They have appeared in the area.
Hmm.
And we may then, through our explorations, it may tell us something about what's going on there. So,
The other idea I had
okay.
similar to that, maybe it, and we'll see what I see what people think, is maybe folks, some of the, we'll just call them the walkers, the ones that kept walking. Um, uh, some walkers have returned, but with no memory. Kind of they've
Ooh,
stumbled out from there, but they have no memory,
oh, that's
and
what
so
they
they can't
say.
say anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's,
interesting.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah, that's,
Okay. Some walkers have returned, but without memory. I like it. Get that up as much. Format. Continue.
and then we have can have some fade coming about them giving another ominous warning.
Okay.
More ominous warnings.
So
Therefore,
we're going to take our break. When we come back, I'm going to talk with you about how we play this out, and we're going to start exploring the changes to this story in this generation. So let's take 10 till about 5 after, and we'll come back.
okay, cool.
So for play in this, we will start with this generation. This is our generation one that has had this incident of these walkers returning without memory that has occurred. We're going to go around and each player in turn, and I think we're going to go Sabine, Andish, Jose, and me. That'll be our order. We will move that forward. So this uh, on your turn, you will choose an action and do that to the time our story beat line. First is that you can erase. You can say that part of the myth has been forgotten. And if we do that, we essentially erase the text of that card. We leave that space there, but we kind of uh, put that out. It is gone. The next thing that we can do, and in that case, tell us like what has happened, how have they forgotten it, why have they forgotten it? Maybe give us a little sense of that. The next is metamorphosize, meaning that some part of the myth has changed. It can be a minor change, it can be a big change, it can give us more details about something like that. This is how the story is told now. Uh, and in that case, you take one of the story beats and you overwrite the descriptor for it. The next one is splinter. Some subgroup has a variation on that particular story beat. They're telling a different story about that. When you do that, you will write the new version in for this one above that particular story beat, and other people can add to that. We can start, adding on to a completely different version that's on that row. If we get a different subgroup, I've got some rows hidden away. We can go in the opposite direction. We can add a different set of rows to do that. When you do that, you're going to when more Splinter, you're going to kind of tell us something about that, about that group that has chosen that. And the last one is propagate. When you propagate, new aspects of the myth emerge. We will actually add a new story beat in somewhere. So we'll move slide columns and put a new one in there. After you do that action, erase, metamorphosize, anyway, splinter, propagate, you'll then choose one of the manifestations, physical, social, or emotional, and tell us what shifted about that in relation to what the change has been. Um, uh, and in that case, we'll do that. The one thing I will mention about that is when you uh, do those, and there's one like little rule here about the changes that, of course, I didn't carry over. Uh, you can't do the same manifestation two times in a row. So if Sabine describes what's changed in the physical, Ondish has to choose the social and emotional, but then Jose could come back and describe the physical. It just can't be twice in a row on that. Also, once a particular card has been changed, modified, adjusted within a particular generation, we don't work on that card again. We could splinter from it, but we couldn't rewrite a card a second time. We just can't and we can't erase a card that we've made a change to. So we leave those kind of intact once they've been done. So Sabine, we'll start with you. We know that this is the story that has been told in these 5 beats, but now in this generation, this span of time, uh, and it may be literally a generation, uh, you know, uh, uh, some of these walkers have come, but they don't have any memory. So what do you want to do with our story? What do you want to do with our myth?
I think I want to splinter. I want to have
Okay.
a subgroup with a different version. And the different version is that they didn't decide to leave. They were forced to leave.
Okay.
That not everybody's in accord with that. And the people the memoryless walkers, they can really say. But they might be the ones who are like, okay, why would we have chosen to go out there when it ate our memories? Huh? Give us a reason. Probably just pushed us out.
Absolutely. So put that in there. I think at 4F.
Uh-huh.
Type that in.
That's not pretty. That's better.
There you go.
Still pretty enough. There we go.
All right. And then the question I have is,
Mm-hmm.
what is the manifestation of that in our society? Now, it can be, we've got those physical, social, and emotional things there already.
Mm-hmm.
We can add to those
Mm-hmm.
something new, or if something has changed with those manifestations, you can rewrite those. It's up to you how you want to do that.
I think I will go with the emotional because that makes the most sense here. Because with this new stuff emerging, there might be some wariness about these new arrivals. They are making noises. They are blaming people. So maybe the longing for their return turns to like anxiety about their return, or not
Okay.
exactly dread, but yeah, I think anxiety is maybe a
Yeah.
good idea.
So that seems like you're rewriting, like
Yeah.
revising that. Absolutely. So go ahead and do that with that emotional.
Okay.
Excellent. Uh, Andish, what would you like to do for your action here?
Yeah. Don't want to erase anything. I don't think I want to metamorphize anything right now. So propagate could include adding to this new version of the story.
Yes.
Cool. Um, huh, yeah. Um, yeah, I think ooh, yeah. I think I'll take this second to last story beat here.
Hmm.
Um, I think the people who were forced to leave are the ones who failed the trials, is the story here. Yeah, I think so. Okay, I'll copy. Let me see. Need
Yeah, I think
to
that's a perfect way to do that.
they piece the surviving guard through a set of trials, um, and the ones who failed the trials were uh, became became the water. I think that oops, I think that makes sense in the context there.
Yeah. And what do you want the physical or social manifestation to be?
Yeah. Um. I think there's a the social manifestation thing. Oops. Think people start to or some people recreate the trials um, to test themselves.
Okay. Uh, Jose, what action would you like to take here?
Hmm. Right. I have a question.
Hmm.
So the beats that exist, like say whatever, the founders overcome trials on their journey and arrive at Firstruin. Is there a way in in these actions to elaborate on one of those, or
Exactly. Metamorphosize.
oh,
Uh,
that's metamorphosized? Okay.
yeah. We
Huh.
we we add to it, we change it, we modify it. We can change it completely, or we can elaborate the details. People have come to decide, figure out more about it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Um. Uh. So seems like we haven't touched the fair folk yet, so maybe I'll give a shot at that. So the fair folk issue a cryptic warning. I think it has metamorphosed into something. Okay, so what would be something about the cryptic warning? It could be um oh, how about the Fairfolk issue a cryptic warning and also demanded tribute from the people of Firstruin.
I like it.
Yearly tribute. Now, do I rewrite the one
Yeah,
that's
you
in
write
this
rewrite
right
that
there?
in that story beat. And let me tell you kind of what this means is like that row, sorry, yeah, that row four, that's a
Yeah.
subgroup that believes that.
Oh, okay.
Whereas this what's on row six, this is what most people believe right now about the
Worldwide.
myth.
Got it.
What they have figured out, what they've decided, how they're telling that story. And what do you want as the physical or emotional manifestation of that like change that we've kind of refined the story, we've developed it. What do you want that manifestation?
Let's see. Last one we did was the social one. Um, so when I do one of these, I don't overwrite what's there. I just add something to it, right?
Or you can override it. If it changes,
Okay.
you could override it or you could add to it.
Um, well, oh, but we just did a social, so I can't do a social again,
Yeah,
right?
so you should do a physical or
A physical
emotional.
or an emotional. Okay, got it. We haven't done a physical one yet. Um, I will add that there is a place in the symmetrical woods where, oh, that I'm going to change that story beat a little bit. A yearly, I'm going to add something, blood tribute
Okay.
to keep the peace. Okay, and then there's a place in the symmetrical woods, an altar where the blood tribute is offered. Um,
Okay. Doesn't hit
okay,
against our lines or veils, so I think we're good.
cool. Okay.
Uh, so I think I'm going to metamorphosize the first story beat a little bit. That people have kind of been exploring the myth and the story, and it's about the idea that the founders received the dreams of these dead gods, but the gods kept their identities secret. Like that's become an important thing that we don't know who those gods were, that they kept them secret, that there was something regarding that. And I think that we get, and this will be on the social, uh, that uh, people begin to, whoops, I just erased everything. So let's go back here a little. People begin to attempt lucid dreaming to reach out to the gods. Like that becomes a thing, a ritual, people gathering together, talking about lucid dreaming of doing that. So that's our story as it stands right now. We've adjusted it. We've got the splinter group. This is has happened. What I'm going to do is that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to duplicate this tab. And I'm going to rename this new tab into MythGen 2. And we move forward a generation. Ondish, uh, you're going to start us out, and we'll give you first bite at the apple. Uh, in this new generation, the time has passed. What is the defining event for this generation? What has happened that is affecting the people?
Ooh. I, let me look at the location. Is that on the, yeah, location. Um, Most of the core. Yeah, think um I think part of the gorge collapses to dam up the river and create a lake that floods like the lower levels down in the underground. Some of the underground chambers are flooded.
Okay, so part gorge collapses, damming river, creating lake, flooding some of the chambers. Okay, so this is the big thing that's happened. It's significantly affected people, an unusual thing. Uh, and now you get to take the first action.
Two. Um,
And if you want another row for a different splint group, just tell me and we'll open up a
yeah,
row
yeah.
below.
Um, doo, doo, doo. Yeah. This is it's this is difficult. Yeah, I think I want another row.
Okay, let me open that
Uh,
up for you.
we don't specify what group that is or anything. It's just
We didn't say much about them, but so we might come back to that.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I think yeah. These people, so they still believe that the founders appeased a surviving god through trials uh, uh, by way of tricks they learned from the airport. So they kind of cheated, maybe.
Okay. So what is this group like? Like, are they? Tell us something about them.
I think this stems from the thing I added about people starting to recreate the trials. And there's like, oh no, you have to do it this certain way. And then some people start to figure out that, oh, we just do the trial in the very literal sense. Like you get a lot of rules lawyering by, oh, I can do it. Doesn't it does the rules don't specify that I can't do whatever thing, and so they do it that.
I like it, especially since we talked about the archetype of there being a rule breaker in
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
side.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you want the manifestation to be? It can be any of the three.
Um, I think there's some friction, or maybe no, wait, let's go with the emotional here. Um, or actually, maybe this is social. Um, Oops. Not, um, uh, think there's like this causes more interaction with the fair folk. And we already had, yeah, I think people start visiting the altar in the woods uh, to hold rituals.
Okay. Jose.
Yep. Oh, I get to do one of these things. Oh, that's
Yes.
nice.
I'm sorry. Which
All
of
right.
these four actions do you want to do?
All right. The gorge has collapsed, damming the river, creating flooding some of the chambers. And um, all right, what's coming to me yeah,
Yeah.
is that for story beat the yellow one, the
Okay.
founders overcome the trials of their journey and arrive at Firstruin. Um, I'd like to metamorphize.
I'm going to say
Metamorphose,
that different every
metamorphize.
time.
I don't know what the verb is there for that. Metamorphosize. I don't
Yes.
know. That one. And is this a, or is it a splinter? I'll say it's a metamorphosize.
Okay.
Uh, uh, I'll add to it. They buried those who died on the journey in the deepest catacombs of First Ruin. Oops, almost got that. Spelling. All right. A little bit of. All right.
And
And those are the ones that were flooded. I won't say that, but
okay.
anyways.
So yeah, so what is the physical or emotional manifestation of that change in the story beat?
Last one was a social, right? So I'll do an emotional. And I will say that um they fear the wrath of I'll just say of the just this is what they fear the wrath of the disturbed dead
Ooh,
because the catacombs have been yeah, flooded and those tombs have been disturbed.
excellent. Uh, I think I'm going to propagate. So I think that a story starts to arise, like when they arrived here's maybe some more stories about like what first happened here, because we don't like have a good explanation of the cryptic warning and the blood thing, but that there was a daughter of the founders, and she tricked a prince of the fair folk into revealing the secrets of the trials to come. That sort of classic steal their heart and use it against them, Jason and the Argonauts kind of way. Uh, and I think that uh, our manifestation is physical, because I do think in this generation, like as a means of hope, like, okay, well, there was this trick. Maybe there is a way around this if the gorge is happening. And I think that uh, the physical manifestation is that people start in those carvings and stuff have an idealized version of what this daughter looks like. Like we start getting that imagery mixed in the murals and things like that. Sabine.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to erase the story beat that they just appease the surviving god through a set of trials. This basic thing that the old way has been forgotten now because this either the whole thing with the tricks by from the fair folk, or there's these other stories that those who failed the trial became the walkers. But this whole thing that it was just the trials and that was it. That's kind of like people lose interest in that because
Okay.
they have a better story now.
Okay.
So, and I think I will go with the social, and I think people will begin to not just attempt lucid dreaming, they will just take hallucinogenics to, you know, reach out to the maybe to the dreams of Gaza, or maybe to the fair folk, or maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just like taking hallucinogenic drugs.
Fair.
Hallucinogenic.
So I have a question about the erase one.
Hmm.
When that one gets erased, do the ones above and below it, because they're predicated on that one,
So
also get erased?
they stay as a subgroup that talks about it in this way, that focuses on this. It means that the main group have stopped kind of talking about the trials,
Okay.
and kind of the story moves from this blood tribute to, as a thing, to the founders thing. Like the whole idea of being able to overcome kind of gets wiped out, except for some groups are looking at these other directions.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. So that is our second generation. This is what occurred during the time of the gorge. That's the event. And we're going to move forward another generation. And Jose, you're going to get to say what the event is that is going to find this third generation.
Okay, an event. All right, an inciting event. Maybe I'll pick up on what you had said at the very beginning that we didn't go with. Uh, Lowell.
The new fair folk.
Yeah, I'm the new fair folk, but I'd like to give it a spin. Like
Yeah.
they've come and some of them have settled in have well, what they've done is they've uh, created relationships with people, like intimate relationships of different sorts with people in Firstruin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you can put that in that generation
Sure
three
will.
box. Yeah.
All right.
All right. And then what do you want as your action? Erase, metamorphize. It is a word. I looked it up. It just bothers me though. Splinter or propagate.
I think I would splinter makes sense.
Okay.
And
Is it
this
going
would
to
be
be associated with one of these two subgroups that we've already got, or do we want another subgroup room?
oh, I see. Oh, I see. So those subgroups are each row is connected. I see.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, well, let me say it first, and then I'll try to figure out
sure.
whether it
Yeah, yeah.
fits into either of these. Um, there's a subgroup, and these are the folks that have been in commerce, either intimate or otherwise, with the new fair folk that are coming. Um, uh, the friends of the fair folk, let's call them.
Hmm.
The friends, we'll just call them. Have rewritten the daughter of the founders, tricked a prince of the fair folk into revealing the secrets of the trials to come as rewritten her as a villain
Oh, interesting.
rather than so that she took advantage of the fair folks' generosity. So I don't know that it's related to the other ones. Wait, the appease the surviving gone through a set of trials. Yeah, it could be the one that underneath.
Oh, yeah, I like that. It makes sense.
I guess I'll just call her she. Oh, the founder's daughter. Almost done.
Yeah.
All right. Oops. I gotta wrap that. Wrap. Hold on. What did I do somehow? Did I do that happen?
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
And what do you think the manifestation is of that? It can be any of the three.
Oh, it can be any of the three. Oh, we don't have one. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not limited. Um, I'm gonna say social, and I'm gonna say that the first, what would you call them? I want to say the right word. The first weddings, cross species weddings. I'm not sure exactly what to call them. I'll just call them between
Folk or people.
humans and folk have begun to occur.
All right. I think I'm going to metamorphize and I think that the people who had this kind of belief about the marginal nature of those returned walkers, like some of what has happened uh, has kind of changed. And I think that uh, they believe that rather than there being this trial, because that's kind of gotten erased from the thing, uh, they believe that oh, I did it in the wrong place. Just yeah, edit, undo. I think that this maybe is on the group has become a little more reactionary, has become a little more paranoid. They had the kind of paranoia about the walkers before, but that kind of shifted now with the fair folk coming in. And I think that that particular group now tells a story that the fair folk chose those who could be a threat to them and, marked them as walkers. And then those walkers in sort of the last part of the story were pushed out. So that is how that has changed. Uh, and uh, I kind of made some changes that emotional. I think that there are people who kind of started to believe that the walkers are a possible resistance to the fair folk in that kind of awful, we don't like change kind of way, and are kind of grabbing on to that. Uh, Sabine.
I think I would propagate the very first one, and I think the story goes the gods kept their identities secret. They didn't. They gave hints about. They kept their identities veiled, but there were hints, and they can find them in the ruins, obviously.
So we would want that as are you rewriting that beat or do you want a beat
Yes.
between being, okay, so you're
No, I want to
metamorphosizing.
rewrite that. I'm
Okay.
actually metamorphosizing. Metamorphizing.
I know
It says metamorphize here. I would also go with metamorphosize, but
I know.
I
Both
am
both
not a
words because
native
English
speaker.
is dumb.
I am not a native speaker. Let me just say change.
Change, yes.
Change. I think
Well,
that that
they missed a
encapsulates it.
trick. They missed a trick by not calling it mythomorphize there, like to get the
Yes.
name a title drop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Then they would have made up the word and it would be easier. But you feel like metamorphize, metamorphosize, that might be an actual word.
It is, but I've never heard it used. It's always been metamorphosize for me, but
Mm.
and again, I checked if it was a natural
Mm.
world on Google, and it might be just an AI hallucination. So,
Mhm. And I think the last thing we changed was not the physical, right?
emotional, I changed.
Okay, cool. So I think the murals and wall carvings symbolize the gods more, not the story to symbolize the gods.
Okay.
And still, the trickster daughter is still pictured, so you know where this might be headed. Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Uh, Ondish.
Yeah, I got stuck Googling
I
metamorphize.
know.
Uh, yeah, I think with the fair folk becoming more sympathetic figures, I think the story is no longer that they demanded a yearly blood tribute. They demanded a yearly celebration. Just that small change.
I like it.
And so, what was the latest?
Physical was the last one.
Physical was the last one. Yeah. Um, where the wrath of the disturbed. What is a possible resistance to fair folk? Um, um, something emotional. Um, there's oh maybe this. I think this fits as emotional. There's a split between those who are attracted to the fair folk and those who find them uncanny. There's a bit of social there as well, but I think that's it's more
Yeah.
about the emotional thing.
All right. And that is generation three. We're going to do one more generation.
Cool.
Name that. Da-da-da. So I have a couple of ideas. I may poll the table about which you think is more interesting.
Uh, I don't get to do an idea. Sorry.
Uh, I thought
Oh,
that,
did I? Did I
yeah, I thought
already
that
do
that
an
first
idea?
generation thing we ended up was in your hands there on that one. I
Oh, okay.
apologize. Uh,
I think that was more a group thing.
Okay, well then, yeah, go ahead and you do
Be-
the thing for generation then.
because I do have an idea.
Okay,
And I think idea would be that the surviving god, who might still be have been around, finally dies.
okay,
So they're all dead now.
all right. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now I have to do a story beat, right?
No, because
No.
it's my turn to
Okay.
start.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Sorry about that.
that's okay. Let me see here. Mhm. I'm going to go kind of with this sort of upper row variant that has been a little bit tense today. Uh, uh, Sabine, what is this god that surviving god? Like, do we know something about them that has died? I don't think we've actually said who they are at all. So, do you want to tell us something about that in that?
I maybe they were a god of the buildings, basically, like of the last ruin itself. That's why they were like, yeah, you got to do a trial, so I will let you stay around here.
Okay. Then here is kind of a variant uh, ending. Sort of there's that whole thing with the daughter, the trickster daughter, and so on. Trick the parents of the fair folk, and we have a villainous version of that. I think there's also a version that says that the fair folk were angry, even though it helped the locals, and she escaped by fleeing and coming under the care of the god of the ruins. Like
Mhm.
she went into hiding in the Crystal Cavern or whatever, vanished away in this. Um, and I think that uh, uh, for the physical, I think there are dueling versions painted of the trickster daughter. I think we start getting that, like very, very different versions of that painted. Uh, Sabine.
Yeah, I think we haven't done anything with the second one lately. So overcome trials. We have never specified these trials that they had on their way, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
We haven't.
I I I think that the story becomes more elaborate. So I think this is propagate, right? Oh no,
Yep.
that's a new story beat.
Metamorphize if you want to change it. Sorry,
I want to
change.
change. Yeah, okay. What would I do if I wanted to propagate new aspects of the myth?
So propagate is about a subgroup telling a new
Mhm.
version of the story.
Okay.
And it could go with one of the two existing subgroups that have kind of gone sort of in those directions, or it could be a whole new subgroup.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So I think I will just change or elaborate on the whole thing. And
Yeah.
I think the founders overcame trials on their journey. And I think it becomes clear since we know more about the gods, or they don't know more about the gods, that these trials were set by the dead gods um, that were taking them to Firstruin. Last one, Firstruin. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And oh, that's making sense. Uh-huh. Wait a minute. We had something where they would recreate these trials, right? Yeah, yeah. And they will recreate the newly um, emerged trials. Um,
They've got a new
yeah,
playbook.
yeah, yeah. And I think these might be rather hazardous, actually.
Okay. So real trials to test people's resolve.
Mm.
Uh Ondish.
Yeah. Um, we kind of have one story where the fair folk are the bad guys and one where they're the good guys.
Yes.
Then the
And everybody else is kind of in the middle.
yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. So think I think I'd like to add something because now it's been several generations since
Yeah.
the walkers returned, the ones who returned without memory.
Hmm.
That was generation one.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I want to, is it propagate to add a story beat, right?
Yeah.
And I think I want to add to the top version um, at the end there.
So in H,
Yeah.
okay. Copy.
Um,
Let me get that set for you. And let me change the color. Yeah.
so, because now I think they're telling stories about the workers. Sure, they return without memories, but that's not uh, that's not relevant to the story. um, the workers who returned told stories about um, living gods beyond the mountain. Yeah, I think that's it.
I like it. And what do you want as the
Ooh, what was the latest one?
I think that was the social one that Sabine added.
Social. Yeah. Okay. So emotional or physical. Um, yeah. Um, whoop. And so it's so annoying that they're not using the same thing for line breaks as
Yeah,
Excel.
I should have set that up differently.
No, no, no. That's fine. That's fine. It's me being annoyed with Google Sheets
Yes.
not having the same shortcuts because I work with Excel a lot. So yeah. Um, some people start to experience strong a strong wanderlust
Ooh, interesting.
that pulls them toward the wind. Yeah.
Excellent. And Jose, you have the last thing in this last generation here.
And this is the last thing, right?
This is the last thing.
Um, well, it seems like we should think about that as a table, I think. It seems
Okay.
like what's missing? What would we need to give this closure? Or, well, I won't get closure, but is there anything that might help?
No, let's actually take five because Sabine stepped away. So let's take
Okay.
five and we'll come back and then we'll do that and
Okay,
wrap.
perfect.
Okay. So we'll
All right,
pause for
great.
five. So we've got this surviving god. We know it's the god of the ruins that has passed away. We've gotten some more about the gods. Uh, what kind of thing do you want to put in there, Jose?
I was thinking, and I don't know how to put this into the myth, and maybe you all can help me, but I was thinking that with the passing of the surviving god, um, well, maybe there was a prophecy that uh, Firstruin would be destroyed when the fall if the surviving god ever died.
Oh,
Um,
is that the cryptic warning from the fair folk?
oh, maybe that's the cryptic warning from the fair folk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could just then metamorphize I'll get it right eventually. Metamorphize that one.
Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah. First run will turn to dust when the surviving god dies.
ooh. And what's the manifestation of that for people?
I'm gonna say it's a physical manifestation. um, oops, come on. Is that you can do this? Uh, the mortar that holds the stones together on the first ruin together is dissolving. Literally.
Literally. Excellent. Uh, I like it. Um, so this is Mythomorphosis. It's definitely in the wheelhouse of microscope and such. I can see a couple of changes I'm gonna have to make to the keeper. Like I will separate lines within those manifestations to make it easier for people to do that. Put the action somewhere different, I think then. Um, so thoughts, stars, wishes, impressions?
Yeah, I think one of the things, I mean, I really liked it, but one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with a little bit is, so we have this idea of myth as being kind of there's a mainstream and then all these different versions. I really like that it incorporates that. Um, and maybe there's a keeper question really more than
Hmm.
anything else, or a mechanical question, like how do you keep those? Because I noticed we were erasing things as we went along. Sometimes someone would put something in and erase it. and I wanted to see more kind of a proliferation than although I guess erasure happens, right?
Hmm.
Um, uh, but yeah, finding a way, if we just have one box, for instance, for say whatever, the physical, like that's the one I just did, you know, uh, well, maybe it does make sense. Okay, I take it back. Because
Okay.
if something is erased from the physical, then it's erased, right? It's not in the physical anymore
Right.
in the generation that we're talking about, right? It's going to exist in the other generations, but not in the generation that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's why I duplicated the thing so we would have the sort of
Yeah,
permanent record.
the
Yeah.
track, the
Yeah.
trace of it all. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I take it back.
If we were going along in a physical game, we'd be stacking index cards up, and you kind of
Got it.
would bury those things.
Makes
Mhm.
sense.
I'll say one thing I think I would do if I were going to do this again is I would have us stop when we describe the event, and then maybe go around and have us like talk about what that event looks like in the thing. Because we did do the characters and locations, and uh, those are kind of setups that if you were going to zoom in and do character scenes
Right.
within the generation, their prompt. But I think it's a real opportunity, like to maybe uh maybe set up the event better, more physically and more visually, and let people describe some of that collaboratively. Maybe even suggest that with manifestations, if you can tie it into a location or a person, things like that. I don't know. Um, it feels like there's plenty of room for us to spend some time describing more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not describing, we're molding the myth, but not so much the actual. I mean, we do, and the physical, and emotional, and social ones. But yeah, like those characters, were they of a one generation and they continue throughout the four generations? Or I wasn't sure what the characters were
Yeah.
supposed to do. Yeah.
And I was unsure whether it's supposed to be about the characters in the world or the characters in the myth. It's unclear to
Oh, in the
me
myth.
on that.
Oh,
Uh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
oh,
I was
you
really
said
unclear
that.
about
Yeah.
that myself, so I kind of split the difference there. Um, but yeah, I
Oh,
think it'd be real opportunity, I think, to describe both at the beginning and the end of a generation to stop off and take some time to explore that. Um,
Yeah. I like this overall. I think that it, to me, it feels like the changes from one generation to the next are very limited compared to how much stories change in the real world,
mhm.
especially when you have, I mean, especially if you have like an oral culture, it's going to like get told and retold and modified a lot. Uh, can be changed quite a lot in a fairly short amount of time. But this doesn't really specify that sort of thing. This is
Yeah,
just a story separated from how it's recorded.
right. It's
Um,
interesting because it does ask like early on, I went with just kind of default, like, okay, these are generations, but you could change the time that each generation is, whether you're talking in a
yeah,
year or
that's
10
true.
years or a century.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I I like it, and I'm just niggling about
Oh yeah,
details
yeah.
really. But I feel like I mhm. I guess I feel like there should be bigger or should be that's a bit strong, but could be bigger changes. Like if someone tells a new version of the story, they're not going to just change one thing about one part of the story. That's the thing I think
Mm,
is because it's like if you take the German folk tales, like you have a version that gets told, and then the brothers Grimm write it down, and then some British people decide to publish the story, and they what's it called? Not Flanderize, it's the other word, but they they sanitize it a bit.
Sanitize.
There is a word for it from some translator. That doesn't matter. And then Disney gets a hold of it, and they tell a story, and they change a lot of things. Like, oh, now they're singing mice in this story, and that sort of thing. And I feel like these changes are very like small and gradual
Hmm.
compared to how stories change in the real world when they get retold. But on the other hand, these are also supposed to be stories that are living within a culture, and that's
Yeah.
also different. So yeah, I'm not sure.
I do like the idea of the subgroup being like foreign co-optation of the story. That's really it hadn't even occurred to me until you said that.
Yeah, I didn't think of it in the context of the game, but yeah, that it does make sense there because I have, and this is I've thought about this sort of thing because I've also had an idea for a game about like how a text could propagate or a story could propagate through history, and maybe I'm colored by my ideas for that. But I think this for the game that this is trying to be, it does it really well. So I'm not complaining about this
Uh,
game. I'm complaining about how this game relates to my sense of how stories work, and that's a me problem and not a game problem. I really like that we have the manifestations connected to this, um, but I also feel like there's I hmm, we're not just we're not just the game isn't hmm. I'm not sure how much the game is about the story and how much it is about the society where the story lives.
yeah. I think that's probably for individual tables. I do think
Yeah.
the the game text, and I may be wrong about this, definitely leans into wanting to explore the story
Hmm.
and would get some reflections of that on the society. Though there is an optional way of like zooming down like they do in Microscope and role playing out scenes in the present world to explore some of that
Oh, okay.
stuff.
Mhm. I did
Jose?
feel the impulse for that at times. Like I said last week, it's the way I like to play. But I did feel the impulse at times, like, oh, I'm imagining, something on the ground happening in the society, as a reflection of some of these, or in alignment with the kinds of dynamics we're talking about at the mythic level. And there was no place to put that because then when it was my turn, it was until you get to the manifestation, you're really mostly just talking about the myth, right? Which is
Yeah.
great. It's cool for what it does. And I also will say that for being such an open-ended game, I never felt too on the spot, because the prompts were, and what we had already established and what started accumulating felt like it was easy to hook into. So even for someone maybe who doesn't have that much experience with this kind of stuff, I think they could still play this game without feeling totally on the spot when it was their turn, right? You know?
I
I
do
I
feel that you could
yeah.
find a good space to do those role playing things. I mean, it has the options in the book. It doesn't
Mhm.
quite say exactly when that should occur, but I think you could find some spots for that. That would be good to just do a quick, like, let's pick up a scene and talk about what this looks like.
Mhm.
Um, who's telling the story? What does this manifestation look like? Yeah, I think that could be fun. Where I'm not as fond of it in Microscope because you're bouncing around so much because you are moving
Yeah.
along in time, it would feel like a more like it feels more organic.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree. I think I got stuck a little bit a couple of times, and I think that was because I was looking more at the story and less at the society
Hmm.
around the story. I think I would have, if I had stepped back and looked at the society more, I think it would have been easier for me to come up with ideas for how the story would change. And I really like the interplay here, like you change something in the story and then you put a reflection of that in the manifestations, and then the next person looks at the manifestations, and oh, now there's this thing, and that can go back into the story. I think that's a really strong thing here. So that's really good. I
Yeah.
like that.
I like it. I would definitely do it again. I think it's a game that could get better at, and like I like it.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think using the characters as archetypes for the story, I think that's I would definitely want to try that, like
mhm.
in a run of the game, because that I think that can also give more ideas. Maybe even have the archetypes as their own, maybe kind of like the manifestations, like you have the this is how we imagine this character to be, and
Oh,
maybe that
interesting.
can change, and that will
Yeah,
kind of feed back into the story.
I like that. Very neat.
Cool.
Thank you all for coming along with me to do this today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yeah, this is well, I backed the Kickstarter on it, so I'm glad to get it to the table. Always glad to have that pay off a little bit. So I am going to stop the recording.